All right, y'all, before we start, because some of y'all be tripping, under the advice of counsel, I got to add that the views, thoughts, opinions that are expressed on this podcast are mine and mine alone. They do not represent my employer. All right, let's go.
Because I was like, damn, do we really want to get into this discussion? Because if we get into this discussion right here, y'all.
All right, y'all, we are back with part 2, Ridgemont Force Finance, the podcast. Still got our guest, the good doc, the counseling coach, and Mr. Egbo, the rapping educator in the building, finishing our conversation on Black boys, ADHD, depression, anxiety, all things mental health. So I want to get into this segment, and you may or may not have seen, there was a very viral video. I'm sure we're all familiar with Dr. Umar Johnson. I love him when he's right, but sometimes, he be on that foolishness. But one viral clip he had, he told Black parents to stop getting their boys tested or their kids tested for special education. And you had a bunch of people that believed in him and was like, yep, he right. And then myself and probably others were like, pause. We can't be telling parents this. This is the very wrong thing to tell parents. So I want to talk about the concerns and hesitations that Black parents have regarding special education testing for their sons. So I'm gonna kind of speak, and this is something I probably should not say, but I'm gonna go ahead and say it anyway because I wouldn't be me if I didn't. I highly encourage. I see the benefits, and I see how some families are able to use the system when it comes to special education and getting accommodations and whatnot for their children. Unfortunately, when their children, let me not say that because I got somebody canceled before. They have a true diagnosis, they need the assistance. Let me backtrack. I want everybody that has a true diagnosis to get the assistance that everybody is getting under the system. Let me say that. Mm-hmm. I tell our parents to play the game. I'm trying to be really careful with my words because the special education world is a community. It's some community you don't want to piss off. But I tell my parents all the time, play the game. There is a game being played, and you need to get in on the game. Your pride, your ego, your cultural norms is not benefiting your child, okay? Your child is losing because they're not in the game with the others. There's a stigma that comes with having a label, and especially when it comes to Black fathers and their sons, okay? When I sit down and have, conversations and say, hey, this is where we are with the RTI process, blah, 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 I get the most pushback and the most resistance from Black fathers because that is just something they do not want hanging over their child's head. But you break down and you say, hey, this will get them more time, this will get them more understanding. And unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and say it, when it comes to behavior, I have to bring it to that point. And I experienced it when I transferred my children into a certain school district. They were at one and then they had to transfer into another one because I changed employment. And the smallest things that my kid did would be a problem. The smallest things that he would do. He was a kid at his other school that was able to lay under his desk and do his work, or stand at his desk and fidget, or, walk around, take an extra lap when the bell rang because he had so much energy he had to get out. And it was not a problem because he wasn't a discipline problem at all. It was just I had this extra energy. Get to this new school and every single thing was a problem. Every single phone call was a problem. Now, because my background was special education, I said, okay, I'm noticing that my kid is one of the few kids that look like him with a little melanin in his system at this school. I noticed that there are 2-3 employees in this school building that look like my son. 2 of them work in the cafeteria. I see what time we on. So because my background is my background, I'm about to play the game. So I'm going to go get some paperwork because I know how to go get paperwork because I know what y'all do. So I'm going to do the same thing. And now you're going to let him, he's going to be allowed to legally stand up and do his work. He's going to be allowed to legally take an extra lap around. And it's unfortunate that we have to do those things to get our kids the assistance they need. But I want Black parents to understand that it's okay. It's okay. So let's talk about the resistance when it comes to getting our Black kids, our Black boys tested for special education.
Y'all want me to scoop that up? Or you want to get it?
Go ahead. You can go ahead.
Well, I'm gonna tell you this. So this is working on the masters, and I remember a class that I was getting my butt kicked in, and the professor would have like essay exams, and he would have just like you know 5, 6, 7 questions, and then you have to reply, and then you have a certain time. He put this little clock on the desk and all of that type of stuff. I mean, this was all off the dome that you had to come, so you had to have good working knowledge of the theory or the theorists and all of this type of thing, and be able to expound on it just like at the drop of a hat, based off of whatever it is. So you had to always constantly be ready. And I just like the first couple times wasn't. But I noticed this, it was a white girl, I ain't gonna lie to you. When the clock was over, he took her into another room. And I'm sitting up there like, where they do that at? And that was the first time that I knew that like a 504 accommodation can follow you to college.
Absolutely.
I'm like, is this a thing? And and I was like, I want more time too. And so I would say absolutely. I mean, we see it all the time, in the educational system, for people to use it. And I can say it's a slippery slope because you don't want to use it as a crutch. And so I think understanding where the balance is the thing, because obviously if the kid is not maximizing their potential by doing it, but if you see that they're being hindered with the normal time, if it's that or whatever the expression is, or being able to stand up or this and that, and they're being not able to fully get a benefit from the system, then that it's time for you to take matters in your own hands. And I think you can't be scared to ask for that, and what it looks like, and I would just say, make sure that you tell your kid, hey, you're not less than anybody in this system. But to me, now I can go way back on it, where where it originates, because I mean, just think, if for 400 years we've not been able to take advantages of systems, well then guess what? It's just like me, playing a team that has had 400-year pedigree, and then here goes a startup university, and they're gonna play football game. I'm thinking that 400 years is really gonna matter. And so it's the same thing. We're just trying to level the playing field, and I guess this is on the heels of getting rid of affirmative action and whatever, but saying that things, we don't need that in place. I'm like, okay, people, just make sure you really consider that.
And I'll just say, right, the good Dr. Umar Johnson, sometimes he's a little sometimes, a good brother, man, he may mean well, but why wouldn't a parent want their kid to be successful, right? So if a kid needs more time, if they need to be under the special education umbrella or the 504 umbrella, do what's best for your child. Right? Don't compare what your neighbor child has in place for them. Don't get on the neighborhood app. Does your child? No, do what's best for your child, because at the end of the day, that's what you're going to have to answer for, your child. So if your child is struggling, to get work turned in, struggling to, a lot of times, especially we talking about boys in this episode, a lot of times I hear, well, he did the work at home, but it's always doing the work at home, getting it back to the school.
Yeah.
That's the, like, it's something in that
lost somewhere.
It get lost. Like Oscar the Grouch is in that backpack somewhere, right? Because like I have a kid that I worked with closely. Mom works in the school district at elementary school, and this kid's in junior high, and she's like, I sat with him, watched him do the assignment. She took a picture, emailed it to me, right? The timestamp was like 9 o'clock that night. He didn't have it the next day.
Just that fast.
Don't know what he did with it.
That's how it happens.
Don't know. And when she went back home, it wasn't on the kitchen table.
And guess what? He don't know either.
He don't know either.
But we understand that he doesn't know. But then imagine getting into that teacher's classroom who has zero understanding, zero empathy for whatever you got going on, regardless of if you have paperwork or not. And explaining to her, trying to explain to her with your anxiousness, with your nervousness, that I don't know what happened.
And in that instance, because mom, this was a class he was struggling in, and because that's why mom sent the email. She's like, look, if he don't have it tomorrow, it's done, and you can see it. And I emailed her back. I said, copy me and the teacher on here. And then if she don't take it, I'll take care of it. And she took it. Yeah. Because he did the work. He just couldn't. He just lost it by the next day. He got
But
to
when
school.
we talk about signs and symptoms, right? Doctor ain't stepping on nobody's toes. Disorganization is a huge thing, right? I know for a lot of kids, we fuss at them about how messy their room is, right? How messy their backpack is, how messy their lockers is, not realizing our old school selves that this is a symptom that comes with that, because it's chaos to us, right? But it may be organized chaos to them. In their minds, this is functional. Even when it comes to their bedrooms, like I know my daughter, I go upstairs and I'm like, man, I try to avoid that room like the plague.
Right.
And I'm like, how the hell can you, you a young lady, how can you function in this room? And it's just like, don't let me move something though, because she gonna have a meltdown. Because it's like, I had my Bubblegum Bath and Body Works right here in the corner, underneath your basketball uniform. I was just trying to watch their basketball. It's a mess. Right. But in her brain, however it works in her mind, it's organized. So when we talk about kids losing stuff and it getting lost in translation from the house to the classroom, or from first period to third period, we got to have teachers that understand how these babies' minds work without trying to control every single thing. And that's just one of the ways that, sometimes stuff gonna get lost.
And the other end of that is OCD, though, right?
Yes.
That's the other end.
Yes.
If the room is immaculate and don't step in my room because the carpet hair, you gonna mess that. So don't.
And I'm gonna have a meltdown. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Mr. Egbo?
I have a different opinion.
Okay.
So, like, I see both sides, but I'll agree with it not being beneficial. And I heard you say, like, play the game. Mm-hmm. And that's the type of person I am, so I'm hearing that's the type of person you are. But a lot of people, they can't play the game. They're don't
not
get
informed.
played.
They're not informed. And I think if they were informed, they could. Now, let me tell you, when I do get parents to finally, because sometimes they come to me like, hey, this parent is refusing testing. Like, can you talk to them? And so, especially if it's a dad, right? Let me tell you how I get the dads to agree to testing, right? Because the dads run the household. The moms always say, let me talk to my husband, and the husband has the final say, right? If the kid is an athlete, okay, and we talk about 504. Correct. We talk about ADHD, how dad like, nah, ain't nothing wrong with him. He just needs his ass whooped. If I say, your kid's a football player, right? He got to take ACT, SAT, right? He's struggling with focus. He's struggling with this and that. When it comes time to take those exams for college or for his scholarship or NCAA, he's going to get the extra time to do A, B, C, D. This goes with him to college. So, yeah, okay, yeah. Yep. That's how you get them. But it's because they're not educated on how to play the game. I think if we're telling parents or teaching parents how this is just not something that can help them right now in the 8th grade. This is not something that's just going to work with them for the 9th grade. This is something that could take them through college if that's their desire. Teaching them, empowering them, like we talked about the last segment. I don't think that they can't. They don't know how, because ain't nobody telling them.
But what I'm saying is, the system it wasn't made for them.
No, that's why we exist.
Exactly. So there's some of us that have an ability to play the game in the system and still find a win. The rest, majority people are getting played, even with the information. And this is what I mean. Like, so we're talking about all the positives of special education and how it's going to reform them and make them successful. And that's what, but then we have to go back to the reality of it. At the end of the day, what is ideally supposed to happen is not happening. And if you look at special education graduation rates, they're low. And then if you follow the kid, we're talking about college. If you follow the kid, a lot of the special education babies, by the time they graduated on a what's the not recommended plan, the plan below that. So they already on that level, or they maybe get a GED because they being passed along and they're not really getting the information for real. They're just getting passed along. So some of these kids, because of the type of parents they have, they're going to utilize that and they're going to climb up and they're going to do very well regardless. Majority are falling by the wayside, and what's happening is, like, I've seen it in situations with me, is I'm trying to build some accountability with this kid, and if you let me, I actually am making some progress. But then you come in, boom, end of the 6 weeks, boom, nope, they can't fail. Well, what's going on? Okay, well, I'm making progress, but he's right there. Like, he needs to see that he's not passing in order for this to work. If I show him he's passing, he's gonna be like, oh, okay, I'm good.
So I think those systems, the laws that are put into place, those are something that we can't change right now.
Correct.
Directly change right now,
Yeah.
right? The laws are the laws, the rules are the rules when it comes to that. Now, when I say I think it's important for parents to play the game, I always think outside of academics, right? I think of things that we've endured when it comes to disproportionate punishments, all right? The disparity in punishments, and how, unfortunately, that umbrella is a layer of protection. It's an umbrella of protection when it comes to certain situations. And because our Black parents and our Black boys don't have that umbrella, that extra layer of protection that other kids do, we see them get the harsher punishments. And only if they had that piece of paper in place, that could have prevented them from experiencing this maximum amount of punishment. I can use countless examples, right? We can have two kids with ADHD, right? 504 plans for ADHD, and both of them have behavior issues or written referrals for impulsivity, right? You may have thrown a juice bottle in the cafeteria, hit somebody in the head. Johnny has ADHD. Johnny has paperwork that says he has impulsivity issues, right? So instead of punishing Johnny, this is a manifestation of his disability. So he's good because he got that paperwork in place, right? Javon, daddy refused testing. Javon, daddy refused the plan. Javon, daddy didn't sign anything. Javon, same impulsivity, threw the same carton of apple juice in the cafeteria, hit somebody in the head. Javon got to go home for a week, right? So when I tell parents to play the game, it's because people are playing the game too, and you need that layer of protection. Now, this is not saying that your child should not be held accountable for their actions, right? We are trying to prevent, as we often see, especially where we work, how unfair and unequal the punishments are for the same instances that happen, the same behavior infractions that happen, but with different skin tones.
But there's no IEP in real life.
There is no IEP in real life, unless you are, we see it all the time, right? The school shooters, mall shooters, things like that, how they get gracefully taken out by hand and things like that because somebody's playing the game. Now, we can't control what happens on the outside of life in the real world, right? Our best thing, and this is my goal as a teacher, as a Black teacher, I need to do everything I can do for you while I have you in my view, all right? While I have you in my hands, I got to do everything I can. Whether that's give you all the tools and resources you need to help make the best decisions for yourself, while simultaneously telling you, hey, you know this shit ain't gonna work outside of here. But while you're here, I need you to know how to work this, how to have self-control, how to make sure that you use your voice, how to advocate for yourself, how to do all these things you can for yourself, because this is not a crutch. But these are rights, these are laws, these are rights that you have under this act that everybody else is getting the benefit from. Why can't you? Why shouldn't you?
I don't want to argue.
No, we're not gonna argue. Go ahead.
But I feel like everything you saying makes sense on the behavioral end, but not on the academic
Why not?
end. Because behaviorally, I understand we have that issue. We talked about that, the disproportionate punishment. I understand definitely how paperwork, I've seen it. Paperwork can allow a child to stand up and do all this. But academically, it's like you sacrificing the behavior benefit for the academic disadvantage, because 'cause I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't think that the system is fair. 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 I don't think that the system if we look at it, these special ed students, the students that are put on special ed, how often do we see them achieve on a level of a GT, pre-AP, or exceptional student?
Well, we have to also remember that special education doesn't necessarily mean that they're academically deficit, right?
that's what
it's a lot of labels underneath the special education umbrella.
Okay, so that's what I'm trying to say. So they could be just as smart or just as intelligent. However, when you put them on that special education classification, now it kind of puts a ceiling over how much they are expected to achieve academically. And I feel like it shows with the results. So that's why you would have a lot of special ed students just hovering right on the passing mark. Or if you ask them, they could be passing all through. But if you ask them real questions, if you try to gauge their critical thinking ability, it's very low. They're still reading on a low level. And we just say, well, that's because they're in special education. So I feel like we are sacrificing the ability for them to achieve on a high level academically to ensure that they're not, which I can't fight that. I want our black boys in school. I want them not being punished as much. I want them to get grace. I want them, but what I see is instead of us saying, you only get grace because it says on this paper you should get grace, it should be us as the educators to say, even if your dad, even if your mom is not going to bring you here, I see the same thing that I see in you in him. So I'm going to give you guys a proportionate amount of grace, whether it's by law, whether it's on this paper or not.
But you're that type of teacher. We have to remember this is, remember we just talked about percentages, right? 1.3% of y'all, 7.7% of us. And out of that 1.3% of you guys, how many are empathetic like you are? Out of the 7% of us that is how many of them are just like me, with minds just like me, right? So I go back to, let's break the kids down into percentages. Everybody, all those kids that are labeled special education are not, they may have a learning disability. They may have a reading deficit or a math calculation deficit, right? Why not, if this is an issue of an area that they need extra focus in or extra assistance in, why not give them that? We talk about equal level in the playing field, right? If I'm 5'4" and you're 6'4", right? And you can make a basket and I can make a basket too. And I can make a basket quicker if I was a little bit taller. So I call it equaling or leveling the playing field to give everybody the equal opportunity to meet the same success or meet whatever success that they're able to meet, right? So I don't want to say I'm giving you a crutch or I'm just passing you because I have to pass. I have to give you the 70 because the people say I got to give you the 70. That's just the rule. But that doesn't mean that I'm not able to hold you accountable in my classroom and push you just like I push everybody else. You could be in my APA class with a special education label, and I'm not going to say, well, you only have to do 3 questions and everybody else has to do 5. I know the paperwork says I can only grade the 3 out of the 5, but I'm not going to tell you, hey, no, you're going to do this 5 too because you're capable. Now, what success you make out of that is great. Hell, you may go and you may make the 5 out of 5. Hell, some of them do better than my regular or than my own level kids, because that's the kind of me that's pushing you, right? So let's not.
But that goes to your point.
But
That's
I don't
the
want
type of teacher
But
you
this
are.
goes back to your
what
point
are
too.
most teachers doing?
What that goes back to your point too, right? What are most teachers doing? But I'm not gonna say, well, Johnny does have as he was tested by professionals, right? The professionals that tested him. And on the paperwork, on the scale, once they calculate all his numbers up, it shows he has a math calculation deficit, right? Or he has an oral fluency deficit. It's not my place to say, well, I'm not going to do it because I don't care what the paperwork says. I have to go by what the profession, that's not my lane. The professionals say you have an oral fluency or reading fluency deficit and that I need to help you better understand, read this orally to you, all right? Now, who's to say that, and we see it all the time, right? I read the questions to you and the inflection in my voice and the tone of my voice, you get it, right? But had I never done that, I wouldn't even have given you the opportunity to show me that you got it. So I can't, as a black parent, say, nah, ain't nothing wrong with him. He don't need that. When yes, he does. Like, he needs a different way of learning. He needs a different way of having the material presented to him, and he can be just as successful, if not more successful, than his peers. But how do we know that if we're immediately knocking it down by saying academically, no, they don't need special education? Because what if they do? What did they do? And we're not giving them a fair shot, whereas everybody else has this fair shot. Because now I just read to Sarah. Sarah got the same accommodation. I read the test to Sarah, and Sarah made a 90. Sarah made a 90. And it may be because, let's say a written test, right? She may have dysgraphia. She may have all these other things that give her the protections or give her the supports that she needs. And if I say, okay, well, I'm going to transcribe for you. She made an A on the test. Why couldn't I do that for Javon? Javon may have made the A too. But I was too proud in my culture and my ego to say, nah, he don't need that. But he does need it. He did need it to be successful academically. That ain't necessarily giving him a crutch or passing him along. That's giving him the same opportunity as I'm giving his peers.
Ideally, with a great
Legally.
teacher, with a great teacher like
it better
you.
be legally.
No, I'm saying ideally, a great teacher like you is gonna do that, but we don't have that. And then I would pose like, so what about like in magnet schools? They don't have no students with learning disabilities in a magnet school, or in those schools where they get the same demographic, but they just put them in a different type of school, and the students are just magically achieving better. What's the difference there?
Well, those magnet schools have programs that are specific to the students that are accepted there, right? So let's say I can say HSPVA is a magnet school that's for performing in visual arts, right? What is that student's creative outlet? What is their specialty? That's why they're there, right? That has nothing to do with their math scores or their reading scores. They're there for a reason, right? So these magnet programs are specialized programs for these students that get accepted into them. You getting accepted. So you're getting accepted by way of some kind of testing.
Yeah, but you could still have those disabilities.
Absolutely. Because it's legally they have to still abide by your paperwork.
And you don't feel like that environment increases your academic ability rather than being in an environment where you might be that different one in the special education classroom or with the group of special education, but because you're with them, it's kind of holding you down. I think I agree with what you're saying because you're right, but I think I've seen too many examples where I'm like, I'm glad you got tested and I'm glad we see what your challenges are, but we're not addressing these challenges for real. We're not really getting to the challenges. We're just baiting you and just telling you it's okay. Do some. You don't have to do that extra time. Don't worry about it. And a lot of teachers are just pushing them along. So I'm not even blaming the students. I'm not talking about their accountability because we only have them for however many minutes. It's what's happening at home. But that's why I said some people can play the game because you're not going to let your son just sit there and just be like, oh, I could just, you're not going to do that. So he has the advantage of you as a parent. Unfortunately, the parents don't have, like, it's not even information anymore. It's sometimes the willingness. Sometimes it's what they going through mentally. And so for me, if I could have it my way, I say we test them, but then we still have to give them the illusion that you're not less, because you could tell somebody said tell your child they're not less, but then their friends tell them they less. Yeah. Some teachers are telling these kids that they're less.
Agreed. Yeah. So when you say put them in an environment where other kids are not like that and they're going to thrive. If I have dysgraphia, I got dysgraphia. I don't care who you put me in a room with, right? That's not going to change my ability to be able to write legibly or do what I need to do, right? If I have a comprehension deficit, right? You putting me in a room with a million other people and telling me to work like they're working is not going to cure my comprehension deficit if you are not giving me the tools that I need. If I'm dyslexic and you put me in a classroom, an AP English class, and say, hey, you're here and you're working with them and your dyslexia is going to be cured. No, because you're not giving me the tools and the resources that I need to be able to work through my dyslexia to help me be able to work on this level, right? So that's when testing comes into play. Now, when you say the educators, if I'm tested, that's why I talk about playing the game. If I'm tested, somebody is going to be held responsible legally, right? We don't get an option in order to give this child the resources they need to be successful in your classroom. Yeah. So legally, once the paperwork is, and it goes behaviorally and academically.
Yeah.
Those are the protections we talk about when we
Okay.
say academic protections. Because let's go back to, I'm gonna keep using my son as an example. He's gonna kill me. I'm gonna keep using my son as an example, right? If my son has extra time, if he has a math deficit and he has extra time, he has an extra day for testing, oral examinations, right? And my son takes this test and I see he made a 53 on this test. All right. My first question is always, were your accommodations provided? Did the teacher read your test or did somebody read the test to you? If he says no, now I got somebody that I can hold liable.
I see.
Academic legally, right?
Yeah.
Because who's to say, had you read my son the test, he would have made a 73 instead of a 53, right? It doesn't matter if I put him in this advanced class and say you're with other advanced students, you better figure it out, dig your way out the mud, even though you got this paperwork. I did not give you the tools to level the playing field because this is the paperwork that says this is what you need from a diagnosed, a certified, board certified person that says this is what you need to be able to do what you need to do. So academically, not necessarily a crutch, but I got somebody to hold liable to.
I see
and
that.
I think that's important.
That's the difference.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
And when parents don't do that, if he made a 53, he made a 53.
Yeah.
I can't go to bed and fight with you or argue with you when it's time for graduation credits and all that other stuff because, hell, you ain't got no paperwork in place.
Yeah.
But if I had this, I can go back and say, you didn't provide accommodations here, 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 and now somebody got to answer for that.
Yeah.
That protects that child.
Yeah. And the teacher has to do it
Has to.
rather than it's just out of the goodness of their heart. They're having a
Absolutely.
good day. they're
That's what I'm
empathetic
getting
teacher.
at. I don't have to deal with you whether or not you're a good person or whether or not you're an empathetic person. Because if you're not an empathetic person, I'm gonna sue your ass. and we get. I know you can get into this all the time. We just done had our own conversation.
And no,
But-
that's what I was going to say. Like, it take the bias out of it, right?
It absolutely.
You know what I mean? So now, you know, a teacher can say, well, I don't think that's what they need. That ain't what the paperwork says.
Anybody ask you what you thought?
I don't care about your personal opinion.
Nope.
I don't care about your biases.
Mhm.
Follow the paperwork.
File the paperwork. And there are still times that I'm sure that you have to deal with teachers who still, even though the paperwork says this, they still ain't doing what they supposed to do. But then that comes to a whole nother question because then you get a parent like me that understands due process and that understands filing an OCR complaint against the school, and I'm coming after your ass.
And I have a few parents like you. And I tell the teachers all the time, you don't want that smoke.
You don't want it.
Follow the paperwork.
It's real easy. It's really no sweat off your back to follow the paperwork. And then, like you said, at the end of the day, we're doing what's best for the child. So it shouldn't even be a discussion because it's doing what's best for the child. And then essentially that's why we're there, right? Like I hate people say we're there for a check. We really are there to do what's best for the child. So it shouldn't even be an argument. But parents, don't listen to Dr. Umar Johnson. Get your kid the protections they need to play the game academically or behaviorally. All right, let me get into this one and I'm gonna wrap this up soon. Because I know I'm gonna have you guys in here late. Let's talk about the overdiagnosing of emotional disturbance in Black boys. All right. So we still under that special education umbrella. And I see a lot of debates with the psychologists and psychiatrists on TikTok about are Black boys being overdiagnosed when it comes to giving them the ED label or the emotional disturbance label. Doc, what you think?
So that and oppositional defiance.
Oh yeah, ODD.
And you know, a whole bunch of disorders that I'm coming to mind. You know, I'm thinking
Like what?
so. A lot of times I'm seeing them with some. It's kind of interesting. I'm starting to see some with antisocial personality disorder. I'm starting to see some with let me think. A lot of coming in with bipolar and whatnot. And that being the case, I think to me, it's the underrepresentation that we have just in general now is starting to become a thing to where it catches us off guard when we're looking at it. Like you never would have expected all of these things would be in our community because historically we've always like you pull that belt out
Whoop his ass, whoop his ass.
you know, and so
or it's not my baby.
yeah
That's our favorite one.
yeah and we're not understanding the reality. So to me, I would say that you need a battery of assessments.
Correct.
You know, if you just go by one viewpoint, then they can always be skewed in a way that, you know, comes out to depend on what the person, you know, is really looking for. But you know, personal assessment is just like, who was that mentioned? I think it was you know, well, the kid can sit down and play the video game.
My doctor.
For you know, 4 hours or whatever. So yeah, when we look at them in these different arenas, and then we corroborate, you know, that, you know, together, and now we have a good firm diagnosis. So it's kind of hard, really, on an isolated situation to you know, really give a label. As a matter of fact, most of the heavy labels are not even able to stick until, you know, they're 18.
Yeah.
18, right.
And so, you know, it's like a lot of the clients that I have, I roll with adjustment disorder, because with adjustment disorder you come with specified, unspecified, disturbance of conduct. It can come with anxiety, depressed mood, or you know, the disturbance of conduct, depressed mood, and anxiety. You know, so because sometimes you can see when there was a particular situation, maybe a grandparent passed, or maybe, you know, some kind of, you know, anomaly that kind of threw the family off, and now all of a sudden this kid is, you know, starting to act out and whatnot, but it's not something that took place before. If you look at their, you know, their track record, so I think that's what I kind of, you know, I try to see if there's, okay, where did the hiccup come from?
Right.
Yeah, where did all of this, and if I can
what
trace
life
that,
altering situation.
yes, exactly.
And then that goes back to the whole being empathetic and understanding too, right? Having the person that's going to take the time to try to dig deep and to understand. I know a lot of times I feel like the ODD and the ADHD, and not, you know, the ED, is given to our boys because it's a way to avoid addressing their specific needs, right? So I'm gonna go without being too specific into a situation that we had where we had a baby that was consistently watching something traumatic that happened to him, that was televised, unfortunately, and kept going back to watch it over and over again on the various social media channels that it was aired on. And without you taking the time to dig deep and find out what happened, everybody else was automatically labeling him as a behavior problem, and just not trying to focus on what his issue was. But had they sat down and talked to him and talked to family and figured out, this is what happened, this is why this baby is falling asleep in class, because he's staying up at night reminding himself of the tragic event that happened to him and his family. Now you get paperwork, refer, ISS, detentions, and nobody took the time to dig deep and say, damn, this is what this baby is going through.
And you know, on a personal level, right? So my brother was murdered 2 years ago, you know, on Thanksgiving Day, right? And so now, you know, my nephew, you know, is having, you know, some struggles where he didn't have them 2 years ago because he was much younger. Now he's coming through adolescence and puberty. Now these feelings that he's having, he didn't have those at 11. He's about to be 13. So now, you know, I was talking to my mother, and, you know, she accompanied him on his AAU basketball trip. And she started to just see some things and just like, hey, you know what, like, you know, we got to revisit this again about getting him help, right? Because that's one of the things he never got, right? After his father was murdered, like, oh, they kind of did therapy-ish, right? Like he went to a session and, oh, you know, he's okay. No, he's not okay.
He's not okay. He's never gonna be okay.
You know, he's not okay, right? And so, you know, thinking about like what Doc said, you know,
Doc is looking at you like he's therapying you as you're talking.
He might be.
He's sitting there like,
you know, that's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, I see.
Really,
he's actively listening.
You trying to listen, you know. But you know, I was going to say about just generational trauma in our community, right? Like a lot of times we have, you know, the buzzword, and I don't want to call it a buzzword, but everybody using, we're healing now. I'm going through my healing phase, right? Well, are you really going through healing?
Right.
Like, because if you're going through healing, that's unpacking. You got to go back to your great grandparents, right, and try to figure out what it is that
Where the hiccup started there.
Where the hiccup started, right? You know, for most of us, right, we can identify what that is, right? You know, trying to get to a place of, you know, where we are, you know, how we deal with our kids, how we deal with our partners in a way that's more loving. You know, one of the things that I you know, I saw this and I posted the other day. I said, you know what? I was raised on survival. I'm raising my kids on love, because that's how I was raised. I was raised on survival, and I'm not raising my kids on survival.
Oh,
we done with that.
Oh,
I'm raising them on love.
Get into getting married to a person that was raised on survival while you were raised on love, and having to try to unpack.
That's right.
Ooh, Lord. Ooh. Anyway, don't make me start telling my divorce chronicles up in here.
Let me chime in on that. So I guess what's sweeping education now, and we're starting to see some of these studies come in, and then we're seeing it in real life in our classrooms, is adverse childhood experiences. So these ACEs, these,
that's right.
When we see these kids, you know, from, I mean, it could be living in poverty, it could be, you know, living with a parent that has, you know, some kind of mental illness, it could be abuse, neglect. I mean, there's, you know, a plethora of ACEs, and, you know, the more children experience those things, that not just their academic performance, because I mean, when we're looking at, you know, essentially it restructures their brain, and what happens is they start to think of what is abnormal as normal.
Yes.
And it is to them, because so, you know, as I was listening to counseling coach, it's when you look at, you know, the thought process of, you know, somebody thinking something is abnormal, but they think it's normal, that is what in your brain is in the area that's called the limbic system, and so that's all about survival.
Yep.
It's like, if I know that I got to be on guard, you know, because of what could happen in my environment, but then guess what? We got the, you know, the cortisol, we got, you know, the adrenaline, we got all of these chemicals that gotta stay ready. Now, those things are not, those are made for fight, flight, or freeze.
Correct. That goes back to what Egbo was saying earlier.
Yeah. And so, so when I have to stay in fight, flight, or freeze mode, I mean, my organs and all of these things are constantly on the state of readiness. I'm in survival mode 24/7. There's a whole bunch of other things that are taking place that, you know, I cannot even engage in my environment, because guess what? I gotta be ready to, I don't know what's going to take place. So I got to be ready for whatever that unknown event could happen at, you know, any moment. And so, you know, obviously the education is like, you know,
the last thing I'm thinking about.
Yeah, that takes you know, several back seats in my life. But yeah, that's, you know, what the new research is with this ACEs, and it pretty much is, we're talking about like a lot of trauma, and it restructures.
Rewires the brain, restructure the brain.
You know what?
So,
I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, you know, it brought me back to a moment. So prior to being in education for the last 6 years, I was in law enforcement. I was in one of the toughest law enforcement jobs there is. I was on the border, living on the border of Mexico and Texas for a long time. And when you talk about fight or flight and getting your mind right, every day you have to go to work with it on your mind. In law enforcement in general, right? It don't matter what area of law enforcement, but during that time when I was in law enforcement, it was the height of El Chapo. So everything that he was doing across the border, we were just vigilant all the time. So I was so paranoid. Like, when me and my wife step out to go anywhere, right? I got my gun on me. I trained her that she needs to walk on my left side so that way I can unholster her if I have to on my right side. And it took me getting out of law enforcement and going through a healing process of, you know, trying to rewire my brain, like,
not
you know
being in the active state of readiness
all the time.
Yeah.
And my wife is like, you just so intense. You so Now, I'm from Baton Rouge, so I go from being in that environment to being law enforcement. I was on edge every single day.
Damn.
So, when I tell people, like, getting out of law enforcement, getting into this space, like, this has been very therapeutic for me
Healing
as a teacher, because now I'm not ready all the time. And I only experienced that one more recently. After my brother was murdered, we went home for Mother's Day. And I didn't want to go, but this is the first Mother's Day, and I had to show up for my mom. And my wife is like, there go that intense look that I haven't seen in a while. Like, I couldn't even have a good time for Mother's Day because I'm like, I don't know who killed my brother. I don't know who know I'm in town. I don't know who know where my mama live. I don't know all the stuff my brother did in the streets. So I could not enjoy Mother's Day that weekend. And it was that point on, like, I need to go see somebody.
Yeah.
Because all that started coming back.
This is crazy, and this needs to be a professional development, okay? Because I think it's so important for teachers to hear this, other teachers who don't have these experiences. We did an episode last week where we talked about checking your teacher privilege, right? And how some things that exist to us may not exist to you. And so you'll never be able to understand what we've been through or what these students have been through because this has not been your experience. So it takes me back to listening to the two of you talk. All the instances we've seen this past school year where students have been aggressive towards their teachers, right? Where students have gotten into physical altercations with their teachers over something as simple as a cell phone, right? My rule, I don't fight you over your phone. It's a battle I'm just not willing to fight.
Right.
Now, I also have the urban or the Afro-engineered knowledge to know that phone to some kids is all they have. That's all they have.
Right.
And so you taking that phone from them means you taking away their means to make money, their means to communicate with somebody that they have to communicate with. I got kids in foster care. This is the only way that they're able to keep up with the sister that was split up from them that now lives in California. Like, you snatching it from them is a violent act. And it's so hard getting teachers to understand that because in their mind, it's just a cell phone.
Right.
But it's like, no, it's deeper than that. And you won't educate yourself enough to know how that impacts these kids and why these kids lash out and swing. Not to say that it's right. I never want to defend a student and not hold them accountable for their actions or not teaching them how to properly regulate their emotions. But we have to understand that even when it goes to something like we talked about earlier about the hoodie, putting the hoodie on the head and shutting down, right? That teacher walking up, I've seen it several times, snatch the hoodie off the head, right? I'm going to turn around and swing because you don't know what this child has been through. You don't know if a trauma response is, hell, I just got my ass whooped before I came to school, right? And that's triggering to me when you just did that to me. And it wasn't me hitting my English teacher. It was me hitting the person that is causing me harm or causing me trauma, right? Same thing with like you said earlier, putting the head down and I'm coming and knack, hitting you. I'm touching you, right? Some kids don't want to be touched. We got to keep our hands off of these kids. But again, if I'm in that mind space where I'm in control, I'm the overseer, I own your black body, I own agency over your black body, I can do what I want to do to you, you're not going to understand that. But you doing that to me or you touching me, I'm not giving you permission to touch me. You have no reason to touch me. And now I'm triggered and now I'm finna swing.
And all those things you named, no adult would want that happening
to happen
to them.
Hello.
If I come and take any of y'all's cell phone off in front of you, no matter whether you supposed to be focused or if we in a meeting,
Correct.
even if you look at a teacher that's on their phone, they gonna give you a little look back, like
Yeah.
who you looking at,
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Imagine touching a teacher who got their head down in the meeting. They imagine poking on them. You know what I'm saying? Imagine somebody adult got their hood on and you take their hood on. Our natural instinct, but we just don't give them that same respect for some wild reason.
They don't think the kids are deserving of respect. This is a conversation we have often. They don't believe that kids are deserving of respect. We come that old school ideology of you a kid, I'm an adult, stay in the kid's place. I'm respect. And it's like, nah, baby, it's not. It don't
You're
work
gonna
like
keep
that.
losing as a teacher.
And it's not
As
worth
an
it.
adult, you're going to continue losing. I don't have that problem. I'm giving you the respect first.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the respect first.
Yeah.
We don't even. I know that your brain hasn't fully developed yet, so I'm not even finna do this battle with you. You gotta respect me first, and then I'm
It's not a pissing contest in my classroom.
I'm giving you the respect. I don't ever want you to do anything close to that to me.
Fact.
So I'm not gonna do it to you. But now, since I'm giving you blatant respect, it's also blatant when you're disrespecting me because I'm just showering you guys with this blatant respect, and I'm giving you the authority and the respect or the autonomy of certain things that I would love the privacy and the autonomy over. So now when you do stay on that phone for 30 minutes, now you're blatantly disrespecting me because I didn't take it from you. I gave you a look. I tapped you on your shoulder. I gave you multiple reassurances, reminders that, okay, hey, and you blatantly disrespected me. Now, this is why I like teaching middle school, because they understand that social contract. They understand that the give and take. They understand, okay, they feel bad when they did it, because imagine if I did it to you.
And you can manipulate, I hate to use that word, you can manipulate their minds to use reverse psychology to help them understand that what they're doing is being respectful. But I say a number one key, and you and I were big on that, we don't do call outs. Like, I'm never going to put you on blast, right? I don't do that because that's disrespectful and that's embarrassing, right? Now, what I can do is make a funny and reverse it on you, right? I can say, you know what, coach, you know, you wrong for that, because I ain't even come at you about your phone. So how you gonna disrespect me? Like, you gonna do me like that? And then, man, you right. My bad, miss. Man, go put that phone on my desk, because I'll feel better with you, not disrespect me and putting that phone. All right, miss, you got it. It's simple. I didn't call you out. I didn't yell at you. I didn't embarrass you in front of your friends. I didn't put you out of my classroom. I didn't do anything to humiliate, especially with our black boys, emasculate you in front of other people. And it's a win.
That's it.
But it's really, to me, it's simple.
Simple.
I don't understand the battle with people. It's very simple.
Simple.
We talk about, even going back, even though this episode's not about girls, but going back to our young ladies, right? And how important their hair is to them. I'm taking off work if my hair not done. You know it. I'm gonna call in sick if my hair not done, baby. If my braid lady say she got an appointment, I'm calling to work. I don't give a damn, star day, your day, my day. I'm not going to work if my hair is not done. So I understand that that's equally as important for my girls, my students, right? That their hair is everything to them. So if I have a kid, I had a kid that lived with, unfortunately, her mom had some issues. She lived with her grandmother for the past couple of years, and grandmother did not have the type of job or the type of income where she can afford to keep this baby's hair up. So sometimes she was able to go, have a friend do something with her hair. Sometimes she was not. Well, one day she came in with a hood on her head. Everybody was on her, get the hood up your head. And the girl, I didn't even have her at the time. She wasn't my student at the time, but came to me because I was the black teacher that always kept her hair done, right? And she said, I got put out of class because I had my hoodie on. And I'm like, okay, what's up? And I said, your hair not done. She said, my hair not done. I said, okay, come take the hoodie off. Let me see what your hair look like. She didn't want to take it off because we were in the hallway. So I was like, all right, we're going to go. I had a classroom set up like ours. We're going to go across the hall to the science lab. There's a room back there. I said, take it off. Let me see what we can do. And so I was like, okay, it needed some work. Y'all know I keep my nails. It's probably the shortest my nails have been, but my nails are super long, right? So I'm like, damn, I really could just cornrow, like put you 2 French braids on the side, and that'll give you the confidence that you need. You won't be in trouble and whatnot. So I went to our resident Angela Davis on the campus, who's also a natural hair expert, and easily, because I keep supplies in my classroom for every situation. I got it all. Whatever you need, I'm the ice cream man. I got it in my classroom. So I went to the teacher like, hey, little girl, da-da-da. She put 2 French braids in her hair, did her some baby hairs on the side. Instant confidence boost, right? But guess what? To that white teacher that put her out of class, that wasn't enough. She was insubordinate because she refused to take a hood off her head. And what did they do? ISS. ISS. Didn't get it. Will never get it. And so when you say, y'all, it's this power struggle that y'all dealing with, it takes empathy, it takes understanding, it takes a compassionate person, but it wouldn't have taken that person 5 seconds to say, oh, okay, I see what's going on. I can't help you. Go upstairs and let Miss Smith help you. But it's power. And even to that administrator that upheld that referral, like, how dare you? Wow. But it was a white administrator who had upheld the referral too. So sometimes these kids are in a losing It's like a lose-lose.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so I want to talk about quickly, and then we're going to wrap it up soon, how we talk about ODD, ED, ADHD, how these conditions present differently in Black boys compared to other demographic groups. When you, in your practice, do you see anybody who comes through your doors, huh?
Right.
Okay. So what do you see coming into your office? And then what do you see coming into your office?
I think, because I'm in the school setting and I know, you Doc does, he has his own practice. If I do see that, it's already coming from a LPC, right? They'll like that paperwork will come in and they'll say, hey, this is what, the student's been diagnosed with. And then, of course, without, going through HIPAA and stuff like that, of course, I'll have that information. And, we just want to be sure that the teachers are aware. So, you talked about touching, and that was a trigger for a young man we had this past school year. He had gotten an altercation and he was already, agitated and elevated, and somebody came from behind him and touched him. An adult.
Oh,
did.
I remember this.
An adult did.
Man.
And that went left real
man,
quick.
I remember that.
You
were so upset that day.
I did.
You were like,
yeah, I was
tears upset. I remember that.
because I had never seen a kid get arrested before,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so I had to, go talk to somebody,
Mm-hmm.
and so, I had to go just vent my frustrations, and I took the rest of the day off because the adult really upset me because they had never dealt with that kid before. That's a kid that I had dealt with and some other people, and because I think the adult was trying to show what they could do,
Mm-hmm.
and that went left real quick because they had no relationship with the student. They never talked. They really avoided the student because they knew how the student was. But in this instant, they felt like, okay, I'm going to show this kid who I am, and that
Was this an SRO? Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah, I hate them. But that'll be another episode. I hate SROs, and I think I've been very vocal about it before. I believe that they have no place in the school system at all. They do more harm than they do good in the school system. That is my spiel. I said what I said.
So I won't go that far.
You don't have to. I do.
Right, because on the safety side, right, especially when they supposed to do their job, hopefully it never happens in the school, but when it hits the fan like that, they shouldn't be running and hiding.
Okay, because we're gonna bring up instances where they did run and hide, but further proving my point why they do more harm than good on the campus, Uvalde. But anyway, that's my spiel.
Yeah. So I think you have to know the student, and you have to know what they've been diagnosed with.
What's that favorite word? What's the buzzword? Relationships. Building trust, relationship, respect. All of that.
Just a quick story similar. I was student teaching, and a student told the teacher, she was like, I need you to da 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 da. He was like, bet. She was like, what? You want to bet me? You want to bet me? I'm sick and tired of y'all challenging me. You outside. You want to bet me? And I let her do whatever she was gonna do because I didn't know where this came from. But she didn't have control of the classroom, and this was just a little side fire she was trying to put out. The kid wasn't doing something, and he was just like, bet. And she was like, you want to bet me? And she just took it all out on him.
Lack of cultural competency.
And so he was like, well, stop talking about it. Get on. And then so I let her calm down because I was like, I feel like she gonna yell at me too. Like if I say something, she goes to her dad, I'm sick and tired of y'all. And I came over there and I was like, hey, he said bet, right? He was like, yeah, he wants to tell me bet. It was like when he say bet, he mean like I got you.
I got it. Yes, ma'am. I understand.
I'm gonna do what you just said. I agree to that.
Yeah.
Like we can bet that that's gonna happen.
That's a bet.
And she was just quiet for a little bit. She was like looking around. She was like, no. She was like, oh. She was like, and then she instantly like regretted it. She was like, when I was growing up, when you say bet, that's like a challenge. It's like you're challenging the person. You're
Their
saying,
authority.
I bet you I won't, or you want to bet that I do. You like, it's a bet that you got to make me. And I was like, nah. When we say bet, it's like bet that, like you can bet that it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen.
And she was just like, that's so, I'm so frustrated. And I was just like,
where's your accountability,
and
though?
I was just like, can I go talk to him? She was like, yeah, go talk to him. And I was just like, okay. So I went out there, and he was all mad, and I was just like, bro, you good? You good? Just calm down. No, cause she she always do this. I'm like, all right, but you giving her more of a reason right now, or how you acting. He was like, all I said was, and I was like, bet, trust me, I know. I just talked to her. She just said that she was tripping, like she thought you meant something else. It's like, see. This is always what happened. If you wasn't here, I'd be in the AP right now. And it just showed me that I'm student teaching, or observing. It just showed me I need to get up in here.
Yeah.
I need to get up in here.
Yeah.
Because.
But did she ever apologize? I think that's something we think we don't owe kids. We don't owe kids an apology. When you publicly humiliate him, you made an ass out of yourself. The least you could say. Like me, I'm the first. Hey, you know what?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
My bad.
I'm tripping.
I'm gonna own that. That's on me. I apologize.
Nah.
Because I think that's a part of their relationship and their respect too, right? It's important for kids because sometimes they don't get that even in their houses, right? How often do your parents apologize
Correct.
when they do something wrong? And I think it was something you posted on on your Instagram page like a long time ago, and that's a practice that I've now started putting into place in my house. Like I am going to apologize when I'm wrong.
Absolutely.
Even when I'm not wrong, because my temper is so with my kids, especially that middle boy.
Yep.
Like my temper is so when I go off and I've calmed down, I have to bring him back and apologize
and it's healthy, right? Because you know I'm raising 2 kids, right? A son and a daughter, and it's for my son. Like I need to show him, and my daughter as well, right? She need to know what an apology look like. You know what I mean? My son needs to know what an apology look like, to them, to my wife, to the mom, you know what I mean? So I think it's healthy that we demonstrate what it is, because we don't want them when they get to be our age.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you know what? Like, I'm not apologizing to you.
I just cussed you out and made you feel less than. I ain't
Correct.
apologizing. I was right.
She found somebody else that was doing something wrong, and she just focused on them.
Yeah.
She just completed, after sitting there at her computer, she was doing like a pout fit. She got him, Daniel, and just went off on somebody else. And I was just like, I gotta get up in here, because I didn't even feel safe doing that. I didn't feel safe. I felt like I was like risking it all.
But imagine how many black boys didn't have a you in the classroom where they felt or have been experienced situations where there was nobody that looked like them that could advocate for them and to explain. Even though I feel like that's another big part of me, but that's the militant me. If you over here teaching what I'm teaching, I don't want to explain shit to you. Like you're here, get in the trenches, cut Real Housewives on, cut Love and Hip Hop on, and learn your who. We always talking about know your who. This is a part of knowing your who, right? Because anybody that knew their who would never have been offended by the word bet.
Correct.
Never, ever, right? I see all the time now these TikTok trendy quirky teachers walking around in dunks and Jordan 1s, and I'm like, whatever. Like you're trying to appear relatable, but have you fixed your mindset? Like you want the kids to look at you and think you're cool, but what's going on up here in your mind? Like, do you still hold those implicit biases against them? Do you still hold any negative connotations towards some things that they say? What's up here? I don't give a damn what kind of shoes you got on. If I don't care if you hit the raffle the same day, and bitch, you got the 7.5s that I needed. Like, I don't care about any of that. What's going on up here?
Yeah.
Like, and what's going on in your heart?
Yeah.
When it comes to these kids, that's what's important to me.
I wrote something down, and I'm going to turn it into a shirt, because I like shirts with messages on them. And it say, you need therapy. And I think more and more I'm having these conversations. And
what does your shirt say right now?
It says,
Black children don't need saviors. They need believers. Yeah. I got to take a picture of that.
For the same reason why they got them dunks on, they think they finna come in here and just save somebody. You know what I'm saying? Like, I understand
complex.
you. I can help.
I can fix you.
I dated a black guy when my freshman year. And you know what I'm saying? So not gonna get into that. but you need therapy. As I'm having these conversations, I'm hearing somebody that was an officer on the border saying that not only did he need therapy, but he's also offering therapy now. I'm hearing somebody that is a therapist, been married for decades, saying not only did he need therapy for himself, but he need therapy for his long-lasting marriage as well. So who does this not apply to? Like, who is excluded from this? Because one thing that I believe, I haven't done the research and all that stuff to find out, but I believe if teachers have therapists, we wouldn't have. I have a therapist, so I'm not talking about myself, but I'm talking about all of us. We wouldn't have these certain issues that we're having and we're passing on to these kids. I think parents, if they had therapists, and then even the kids, if they had therapists. So we all need therapy, but the shirt is going to say you need therapy because you think when I'm saying that, I'm talking to everybody else except you. Yeah. But you need therapy. Yeah. We need therapy. And I had wrote something down real quick. We was talking about something earlier, something about therapy. Oh, the therapist having a therapist, and I feel like a solution is because so many Black people are against therapy. Yeah, so many people are against therapy, but for sure Black people, because we already been told we crazy. Now that's kind of like admitting it. And if I admit it, then you was right, and I know everything you ever told me was a lie. So I'm not ever gonna admit the truth. Anyways, so we fight against therapy, but that is the missing piece. And just like how Black boys go to get a trainer for basketball, just like how we want to teach our kids to swim, at a certain age, you teach them to drive, you teach them to shoot, you teach them these certain things. That needs to be that accessible. We need therapy to be that accessible because we giving them all these things because we're saying it's going to help them in life. So we know therapy is going to help them in life, but it's not accessible. There's not enough of us, right? But we need to break it down to where you don't need to only be a licensed therapist to know some basic things about therapy, not
to be an outlet for somebody to just come talk.
Outlet information. We need to have the information more available. I'm not saying counseling. I'm not saying psychiatric work. I'm not talking about that. We do need more of us in there, but we need it to be prevalent. We need an overflow of information when it comes to therapy, so that the average person knows. Just like how the average person is able to go and learn how to swim, the average person needs basic therapy 101 to just get to a certain point, just surface level. So we don't even have that.
And a couple strategies that are tools people can use.
I was just about to ask, let's talk about strategies for support.
You could pick up on this, but I mean stuff like journaling, right? Like I found this journal. I posted it on Instagram. My brother has one now. Two of my frat brothers have one now. One of my college friends have one now, and it's just a black male journal, right? Where you journal your thoughts. And so as men, as men, we already don't talk a lot. We don't communicate a lot, right? And so
because you have to be strong all the time.
You got to be, right? But my wife journals, and so now I have one. I journal, right? You can cut for kids, right? Coloring books,
or day journal too.
That's right.
I have person coloring books.
There you go.
You ever seen those? I use those in PDs.
Yeah. So those are just some things, right? Of course, people that need therapy need to go get it, but there's some things out there that you can do. Like I love my drone, so when I'm feeling I may put the drone in the air and go, drone around Houston, because I like it. So. And take those mental health days. That's one thing about teachers they don't do. You do it
all the time.
But
hair, nails, Law and Order.
Take those days off that you need, because you can't be great for the kids if you're not taking care of yourself. Okay.
So, last thing before we wrap up, I want to talk about the importance of community engagement, mentorship programs, just being a positive role model. It goes back to kind of what you said, like, do I need to see a licensed professional in order to have an outlet, right? And we talk about mentorship. I made a TikTok video about mentorship and how it starts with the community. I'm gonna go back to something Dr. Umar Johnson said that makes sense, right? As a community, we're lacking because we're all individual mindsets, right? Nobody is thinking with a community mindset. And for us, it starts with community. I know for Juneteenth, we had a big thing in our neighborhood where we had a lot of gentlemen coming together trying to do good for those kids. And I was thinking, like, damn, that is so important. Like, what if we had a program like Rent a Dad or Adopt a Dad or something for those kids who don't have consistent father figures in their life, but all they may just need that good role model. I'm gonna be honest, like I'm a single parent, but I send my boys to counseling coach a lot for anything, right? And they go to him a lot for anything. It could be, I remember like the oldest one had a flat tire. I don't know how to change fire. He don't know how to change flat tire or battery or something like that. Or somebody that I can't advocate for you on the football field with the coaches, but he can. So maybe he can tell you something that I can't. But just how important that is, male mentorship is, period. Now, a lot of times the school districts have these programs in place where they offer, hey, guys, we need male mentors. Can y'all come to the school? Can y'all come to the school? And on my campus right now, I'm going to tell y'all, it's only 2 dads that show up, and they show up consistently. One is white, one is black. That's it. 1,500 students on the campus. A neighborhood with $500,000, $1 million homes, right? 2 parents are definitely present in a lot of their homes. But when we ask for volunteers to come up and just give these kids 30 minutes a month.
And I think that's a big misconception too, that because kids have 2 parents in the home that they don't need a mentor.
That they don't need a mentor.
Everybody need a mentor.
Yeah. Because your 2 parent can be, we got parents that, we got some daddies work overseas in the oil field or in Dubai. So yeah, they got 2 parent income, but I don't have a 2 parent presence.
That's right.
Or you do, but he just don't get me.
Yeah.
Like,
because he wasn't healed.
You get me, bro.
Yeah.
You get me.
Right.
My dad does not understand what I'm talking about.
Mhm.
You're finishing my sentences.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? So sometimes your dad can be right there.
Yeah.
But it does not help. I mean, it does not hurt to get somebody else as a mentor.
Yeah.
Don't matter where your dad is. You could benefit from a male
another
mentor.
male. Yeah.
I would say this. I feel like just like how black men are scared out of the profession, we also scared out of them situations too, because it's so, we just gotta walk on eggshells.
Yes. We talked about that in the other episode, how it's just so much against y'all that scares y'all away from being the great people that y'all want to be. We had a whole episode where we talked about this coach from up north that had some kids create a story against him and had him all over the news, you know, and then all of a sudden it was like, oops, we investigated and sorry, they lied. But damn, you done ruined my life already. So those things are important. But male mentorship, I'm gonna encourage everybody. If you're at a school, if you're near in a neighborhood and you got 30 minutes a month, 30 minutes a week, anything that you can come dedicate to some kids, even if you driving by after school and see them outside football practicing and you see a little boy running a route the wrong way, like mentor, that little few minutes can be crucial when we talk about community and how these young men are gonna turn into the men that are gonna be the leaders of our community. I think that's
Can I add
very
one
important.
more thing?
Of course.
So I have 3 sisters, so I see things. I always look at how us men could be better, but I also see how women can help. So men are motivated by women. That we're not motivated by kids. We're motivated by money, women, and whatever purpose that we're living for. If the women were more inviting, you would see a higher turnout. However, sometimes, and I'm gonna speak from my experience, and then you guys could speak. Or
You see, I'm raising my eyebrow, but because I'm like, what you finna say?
Okay, so
let me sit up and poke my chest out because I feel like it's turning red pill-ish.
Okay, because if the women in the school, let's just keep it at school. If the women in the school did not have their father or had a bad relationship with their father, they might diminish the value of a dad on whatever program. So now they'll turn it into, well, we don't need them. We could just get the moms to come out, and moms are just as strong. But however, and I'm speaking this from because I did use my name and I'm here. In my school, I'm like, no. Let's get the dads. Let's just try it out.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just try it out. They're like, oh, we have to bring the moms involved too because some kids don't.
Because
have
everybody
dads.
is all about inclusivity.
No. Let's call it dads. It's just dads, father, daughter, father, son, father, daughter.
Mm-hmm.
No, they have all the excuses. I'm just like, this is the problem. This is the problem. And I read somewhere that dads don't get called. It's always the mom that gets called. So then I started calling dad. And every time I was calling dad like, oh, I didn't even know what was going on.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to get right to the bottom of it. I'm
And
like,
that's what I do. I call father.
I do too.
I'm
If he
calling
on the
dad.
paperwork, I'm gonna call him
calling
first.
dad.
Now sometimes he is oblivious, and sometimes dad. And I've run into a lot of situations where dad is like, "Hey, that ain't my ministry. Call their mama."
Yeah.
Because I go to work, I pay the bills. That's her responsibility to rear the children. I've dealt with that too. But when we talk about having father-son basketball games, father-son, father-daughter dances, we still have to keep in mind those students who just do not have a father. I'm gonna go back to the baby that we were talking about earlier. And even like I'm gonna use his nephew as an example, right? If I'm at a school where everything they say is father, and I'm already traumatized because my father was murdered, how am I going to respond? What kind of kid am I going to be in a school? So I have to open it up to male mentors. So we do this thing on my campus, and I loved it. It was the first year we did it. It was like a father-son basketball game, but they didn't call it father-son. They gave it some real creative name. So people were able to bring like their big brothers, their uncles, their godparents. Some teachers or coaches stepped in for boys that didn't have a father figure. So I think that's important, recognizing that, we don't. Like if my ex-husband lives out of town. So if you are a person that kept everything what was father based on my son would be left out, and he would feel like, damn, feel some type of way. But if you said, hey, male mentor, then he'd be like, oh, I could bring my 21-year-old brother. I could bring my uncle. I could bring, my goddad. I could bring somebody else in. So I think that's important.
Male mentor.
Male mentor
is what I mean. You know what I'm saying? I'm definitely not trying to leave nobody out. But because there's more fathers that would not show up, and rather if you say mother, because I was gonna also bring up sometimes people feel some type of way on Mother's Day because their mother is not with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
But on that's the solution, because I was gonna ask what's the solution, because there is dads that want to be involved. What's the solution? And that's just rounding up as the male mentor.
Yeah, bringing more programs or things that they can be involved in. But going back to Dr. Umar Johnson and the importance of community, right? You stepping in. Somebody on one of my videos was kind of going back and forth with me being like, well, damn, I can't be your mentor. I got 2 kids at home. I'm trying to raise them. I'm a coach. I'm a this, I'm a that. And it's like, cool, you got an individual mindset. That's not going to help the community. That's not going to help the dude that we saw on national TV cock back and hit that mama, and the 14-year-old had to send him to see his granny. That's not going to help that. But if we have a community mindset, somebody could step in and say, you know what, I saw this behavior when he was 14 years old, and now I'm that person that stepped in and talked to him and helped him regulate his emotions and helped him talk through things, and that could have prevented that. So the importance of community, male engagement, that is mentorship is very, very important.
Well, I was going to chime in on that. Obviously, everybody's familiar with it takes a village, to raise a child. And, was it some of the other sayings that each one teach one? The Bible, talks about each, person seeking to have a Paul and a Timothy, that person that you look up to, and then the person that you bring it up on your, level. I think the mentor program is a must, if we're able to really leverage, the educational system and then bringing the community in. I think we're going to have to be untraditional, unconventional on who these individuals are. And so, one of the things, going back to Chris Emden, Dr. Emden's book, he talks about, bringing the barber in into the school system, bringing the rapper in, bringing these people that may not usually be in those spaces in the educational system, but those are the ones who we can leverage the most in order to reach and build the rapport and make that connection. But if they're ostracized from the educational system, then all of a sudden, they don't feel comfortable, walking into that space. And so I think how that looks has to be challenged. And, just what you were saying as far as the basketball game and stuff like that has got to be out of the box. And how often, are you going to have an administrator that's going to say, yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah.
And it has to be that person has to be kind of a creative mind and understanding what it takes to bring, these students together.
Okay. So let's wrap it up. I'm going to give y'all 1 minute. I want y'all to give your best advice to parents as far as mental health, advocating for their sons, resources, any 1 minute spiel you want to give. I'm going to start my timer because D. Francis is like, y'all got to get the hell up out of here. It's too late. We've been talking. We just be running our mouths. But 1 minute, what's your last 1 minute spiel? I'm going to go with you, counseling coach.
I'll just say, love on your kid, listen to your kid, and you have to do the work too. So I can't, say, hey, you got to do this if I'm not doing what I'm not practicing what I'm preaching. So, and I just go back to what I said earlier, right? Like, I was raised on survival. I'm raising my kids on love. That's just what I'm doing. They don't have to, because, prior to coming into that understanding, I always used to be like, y'all ain't go through what I went through. And then I had an older man tell me, they not supposed to.
And they don't have to.
And they don't have to. So, yeah, you purchase them the things, you have them, they're great kids, but, you don't want them going and living back where you live because they wouldn't survive.
No, mine wouldn't.
And I'm like, that's right. They wouldn't make it.
All right.
So, yeah.
All right. Good, Doc. What you got? 1 minute for the people.
Kind of, jumping in on the idea of love is extending grace and us understanding, from a parent perspective, from an educator perspective, that these kids are going through, like, I mean, you can say some of it is the same, but they got the social media pressure. They got, all of these things that we could never imagine, could influence their mind space. And so I think, just to I'm doing this as a parent. My oldest, daughter is 19, and I promise you, she has taught me how to be a person that extends grace. Because it's like, wow, if I had given her the same method that I had to deal with as a kid, she wouldn't be here. And so
Don't do my girl.
Yeah. So to me, it's like, okay, I have to sit back and try to empathize with them as much as possible. May not be able to understand everything, but no, it's a different time, and for me to just extend that grace, I think that's my main thing.
Okay. All right. Mr. Egbo, what you got?
I'll say it's 2023. We got access to the World Wide Web. Parents, don't give up on your kids. And what I mean by that is we talk about if you knew better, you do better. If you had access to the information, we should be able to see that in your actions and in the fruit. So get on these websites, get on these resources. For ADHD, it's CHADD.org, and you can find out so much about. Just look this stuff up. Find out exactly what's going on. Research what's going on with your child, and then implement these things and what's going on. Don't give up on them. Don't rely on the school to do it. Like, you have a responsibility, and it's not just to feed, clothe, and shelter. It's not only that. You have to pour in. They got to see you pouring into them more than anybody else in this world. And we do that. This generation, I believe this is the best generation. I believe they're only going to show it when they come to their full truth of who they are. However, if we don't usher them into that, if we don't give them the grace, if we don't stop saying, do as I say and not as I do, if we don't do these things, then we're just pushing these kids into a worse situation than we was in. And it should be the opposite. This is the best generation. They have access to unlimited resources. The future is very bright for them. I see that on a daily basis. However, I'm just in the school. So y'all got to do y'all part. We going to do our part. We going to hold it down, and we going to watch them flourish.
All right.
I got to, like, Mr. Egbo, can you just give us a bar or something? Can you give us something, this generation? Give us something for these, for these young people. Can you wrap us, out of this piece?
I said, I'm capturing the heart of kids. It's difficult. I promise. I said, I'm capturing the heart of kids. What I say? I'm capturing the heart of kids. It's difficult. I can't contain how hard it gets. But we can't give up on doing things we already did just because we already did. Yeah. It's always going to be somebody that needs you. I'm a human just like you. I cry sometimes, I bleed too. Every now and then I need a shoulder I can lean to. I need somebody's shoulder I can lean on. Balling like LeBron because I just want to put my team on. Only way we made it through the college was the refund. And we never listen when they try to say that we dumb. Don't ever listen when they try to say that we dumb. We just want some freedom. We just want some freedom. Can we give respect even though we young? I'm trying to retire early, kind of like I'm Young Vince. Purple rain got me feeling like a young prince. I knew I was special ever since, but I didn't understand ADD as a kid. All I heard was deficit. I was outstanding, but my teacher said to sit. Them people almost had me on sedatives. I said and think about the damage that it did. It's sensitive. I sit and think about Miss Graham and Miss Jackson. They encouraged me with all my singing and my rapping. In the 7th grade, they told me I should make it happen. They made me want to improve how I acted. Walking hollow hallways, feel like I'm going crazy. Why I'm always feeling like the bad kid. Why am I in COC? I take pre-AP classes. I just thank the Lord that all of this is in the past tense. Now I'm up in A-Leaf and I'm feeling like a pastor. Look at all the hearts that we didn't capture. Look at all the hearts that we didn't capture.
That's what's
I
up.
love it. So crazy that I talked to Miss Graham today. Now I'm going to call her back.
Oh, yeah.
I got to call her back now.
Oh, yeah, she changed my life.
I talked to Miss Graham today.
Yeah.
So crazy.
Yeah.
That's what's up. I got to talk to her.
She changed my life.
I love it. So let me give my 1 minute spiel, even though I'm not a man, but I'm going to give my perspective and then we're going to get up out of here. My 1 minute piece, last minute advice to parents. Guys, we gotta stop beating our kids. Gotta stop putting our hands on our children. I don't think y'all realize how your failure to heal or your only avenue, your only way to reason is to hit your kids. And when you send them to school with that, how we have to deal with that and how they in turn turn that behavior onto their peers. And we have to find other ways to help our kids manage their emotions or be disciplined. That does not involve us belittling them, beating them. Y'all got to keep your hands off y'all kids. That's my spiel.
Slave mindset.
I hate it. I hate it.
Slavery
Pick a
mindset.
switch, beat your kid. I hate it. We got to stop that, y'all. Man, again, thank y'all again. I said I've worked so hard to try to get y'all in the same room together, and I don't care. I know we've been in here for 3 hours, but it has been so worth it. I appreciate y'all so much for coming and spending this time with me. I know counseling coach done missed track practice. We got the Junior Olympics coming up. Got to get his baby girl ready to dominate. And so we've taken away from that. So I appreciate you sacrificing time for that. You stay on the other side of the planet. So you got to drive home tonight. I appreciate you hanging out.
Absolutely.
Mr. Egbo, a pleasure. I've been dying to meet you. So I'm so happy that you came tonight to hang out with us and give us your knowledge. I'm going to tag all of these men's Instagrams or their social medias on the directory and on my Instagram page because they all have something unique to offer. And give you guys some resources to get your baby some help, all right? Don't listen to Dr. Umar Johnson. Get your baby some help, okay? All right, it's been good. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of Region 1 Finest, the podcast. We'll see you guys next week.
All right.
Peace out.
This podcast was made possible by producer extraordinaire D. Francis at the legendary Lab 7 Studios in Mo City, Texas.